Hello everyone, our topic is all about to be or not to be the political self. We have first the Filipino identity, second is the political self, and the last but not the least is the democratic culture. Identity emerges from a set of values, traits, behavior, and social norms. Filipino identity can be defined as the summary of all attributes that relates us being Filipino. Through traits, distinguishing quality or characteristic that are typically attributed to one person, and the values, of course, we have the values, person's principles or standards of behavior dictated by what we believe as human beings are important in our lives. That is values, and the institutional factors, which examples are the schools, churches, government, and these three, the traits, values, institutional factors, Filipino can be pictured clearly.
So let's move forward to the Filipino common traits. And to start off with, number one, hospitality. So hospitality means like warm treatments towards guests or strangers. Filipinos are acclaimed for being one of the most hospitable countries in Southeast Asia. So for example, if there's like a guest inside our house, we always greet them. We always pay respect to them, and not just to our guests inside our house, but also those people we encountered along the way, such as our teachers, our friends, even like elder people. We Filipinos really have that hospitality within, so that's the number one Filipino common trait. The number two is respectfulness. So, what really is respectfulness? From the root word itself is respect. So, it is to show consideration to other people. So, one of the habits that Filipinos do to respect elders is to by answering or by responding po and opo, pagmamano, and calling our older siblings ate and kuya. So number three is strong family ties. So Filipinos are loyal and dependent on their families. Most Filipinos are known for working hard to provide for their family. So unlike Westerners, like foreigners, they tend to leave their family or their homes at a certain age. But for us Filipinos, we find reasons to stay and to really make a bond, especially on those small events or celebrations such as like birthdays, reunions, fiesta, and a lot more. So, Filipinos are known to be family oriented. Number four is religiousness. So, Filipinos are passionate with their faith, applying themselves through all the traditions that come with whichever religion they believe in. So, one example that I can think of is Christian traditions such as fiesta and uh, Islamic practices of fasting in Ramadan.
Optimism. Optimism is the feeling or being hopeful about the future or about the success of something in particular. Optimism is another trait that emerged from this institution. Optimism makes Filipinos resilient from the unforeseen accident of catastrophes. Filipinos have trudged through a plethora or natural calamities without losing their smiles and sense of humor. Bayanihan mentality. Filipinos have the innate sense of responsibility for the community through the bayanihan. Filipinos overcome difficulties by working with each other towards a common altruistic goal. Hiya. Hiya is shame, which is governed by the notion that goals of the individual is to represent oneself or one's family in the most honorable way. Hiya, or the sense of shame, keeps the Filipinos in control. It humbles them to almost always to do the most appropriate thing in the place or situation. Most Filipinos, because they feel here, are the more submissive or accommodating than others nationalities. Amor propio. Amor propio is a Spanish word meaning self-love. Self-love means having a high regard for your own well-being and happiness. Self-love means taking care of your own needs and not sacrificing your well-being to please others. Self-love means not sitting for less than you deserve. Self or amor proprio self-love is presented as being a person with integrity or honor. It is reinforced by hiya wherein you practice self-love by not doing something shameful even to the point of avoiding confrontation. That's all.
The Filipino values, on the other hand, could be broken down too. So the first is personalism. Personalism, it is the deep appreciation for good interpersonal relationships with others. Filipinos believe that successful leaders are not only proactive but also humane with interacting with others. So the Filipino dog believes that successful leaders are not only proactive but it also a humane or kindness with others. It ties in with traits such as the bayanihan mentality, hospitality, and respectfulness because Filipinos know how to validate other people's sense of dignity as a human being. So though, just like the bayanihan mentality, hospitality, and respectfulness, because the Filipino daw is know how to validate others people sense of dignity as a human being. So the second is familialism. Familialism, as stated, Filipinos are raised to reinforce rather their love for their kin. It is this value that fuels them to take part in careers or studies that will ultimately help the family. This is also why they are protective of family members to the extent that media has told this story of the individual members as seen on the practice of pamamanhikan. So, kabalo naman tani guys is pamamanhikan is muna siya ang mamalayi. So, kanang isa asking for the parents' blessing. So, the Filipino values is muna siya ang mamalayi ka. So, kanang before ta ikasal, bitaw kay mamalayi usa ng as the parents sa blessing first, diha na din ang like kanang matapik ang when ang kasal, sabutan nila, and so on. And the last is particularism. Particularism insulates Filipinos not for patronizing someone who is familiar or one who they relate to. These values are rooted nepotism and unhealthy idolatry that keeps Filipinos from deciding objectively. It's in practice every election actor winning because of popularity or even dynasties of actors or politicians grown as if it was his or her bright right to get power.
So number 4, there are also institutional factors that also come into play when it comes to the Filipino identity. So, institutional factors, example niya is governance, taxation, and it is the structure built upon different instances that Filipino has encountered with. These situations are what molded the traits and values that Filipino have acquired throughout the years. So number 5. All of the traits and values are rooted from the huge bunch of cultural practices from different foreign culture. Unlike their neighbors who are more Asian in their ways of living, the Philippines is predominantly Western due to the deep interrogation of Spanish and American culture in the archipelago. The Tagalog dialect, for example, has Spanish, Malayo, Indonesian, and Chinese in them. Another practice borrowed from the West is that of practicing Catholicism, ingrained in us by the Spaniards, and the establishment of democracy and public school from the Americans. So, kabalo man ta nga sa una, gisakop dito sa mga Americans, sa mga Chinese, sa mga Spaniards. So that na-apply nato ang ilang culture, which is Catholicism. Na-apply nato ang Catholicism. So, karon daghan na kay mga Catholic, and democracy. So, na-apply nato ilang mga culture na nasakop man nila pila ka years.
Moving on to the political self. The political self is formed from the constructed Filipino identity and political history and landscape. When a person is born as a Filipino, he or she is exposed to a democratic country controlled by oligarch. The Filipino identity then is ingrained in different generations of Filipinos by oligarchs. So, ako saan continue basa. To be manipulated in order to sway politics in their favor. So, oligarchs or oligarchy is a small group of people that control the country or an organization. An example of this would be having blood relatives in the north, which is the familialism, most likely voting for someone who also hails from the north, which is called the particularism. Since political inclinations are passed down to different generations, Filipino politics has a long historical battle for control and power. This is why oligarchy flourishes in the Philippines. They willingly pass it down because it is also intertwined with Filipino traits and values. Filipino politics is as colorful as Tagalog language, a surplus in political parties, rich and powerful families claiming territories, and life-changing political situations. Example, the age sa people power, Estrada stepping down from the presidency, Duterte being the first president from Mindanao.
So, democratic culture. So, there is a paradox between the concept of democracy and the dominance of oligarchy in the Philippines. Democracy may allow people in the Philippines to vote or to hold position in the government, but Filipinos are also subjected to their own biases according to an external factors or learned ideologies. So, for example, Filipino, because of the trait hiya, might vote shamelessly on accepting money from a vote-buying candidate. So, diba, kapag halalan, so when there's an election, vote by, higit siya mawala. So, kasi, more likely, naagin na siya. So, like, yung mga pili ganyan. So, as far as I know, it's illegal, but it's always the corner of election, and because of it, it submit us, it make us submissive to this kind of thing. That's why it's one of those culture doing election good.
There was also a debate between Lee Kuan Yew and Fidel Ramos, wherein the late Prime Minister argues that too much democracy, which is apparent in the democratic culture in the Philippines, bogs the country's Development potential. Too much democracy after the installment of the 1986 Constitution brought about the COP Diitat in Cory Aquino's administration that slowed the Philippine progress of healing from the damage of EDSA revolution brought.
Democratic culture. The Philippines' culture of expecting one messianic figure to cure all of their woes is also prevalent in Philippines democracy. Election after election. Filipinos choose public figures who they thought at the time would remove them from poverty. So the Filipino choose public figures like for example kanang who are people in the public eye or have achieved fame because they thought nga mo ni siya ay makawala sa ilang kapobrihan. It has always been the selling point of winning public figures but also kanang mayo kayo sila mo suting nga ang mga tao is makakuha sa ilang intention na mao sila angay makadaog. But after the election, satisfaction with the politician declines over time because they didn't meet expectations. Take for example the previous president of the Philippines, Noynoy Aquino, who despite initial high ratings also experienced fluctuations on his satisfaction ratings all throughout his term.